Arthritis.
Arthritis.
Arthritic fingers.
Artichoke.
Artichoke.
Article.
Article.
An article on environmental issues. The paper's leading article described the government as weak.
Newspaper articles.
Household articles.
She only took a few articles of clothing with her. Article 1 of the Constitution guarantees freedom of religion.
Articled.
Articled.
An articled clerk. He was articled to a firm of architects.
Articulate.
Articulate.
Many people are unable to articulate the unhappiness they feel. He was so drunk that he could barely articulate his words.
A new course that is designed to articulate with the current degree course. Bright, articulate 17-year-olds. A highly articulate speaker.
Articulated.
Articulated.
Articulation.
Articulation.
The articulation of ideas.
Artifact.
Artifact.
Artifice.
Artifice.
Artificial.
Artificial.
Artificial flowers. Artificial light. Artificial fertilizers. Artificial distinctions. Artificial barriers of gender and race.
An artificial smile.
Food prices are being kept artificially low.
Artificial insemination.
Artificial insemination.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial respiration.
Artificial respiration.
Artillery.
Artillery.
Artisan.
Artisan.
Artist.
Artist.
An exhibition of paintings by local artists.
Many of the artists in the show donated their fee to charity. He's an artist in the kitchen. He's an artist in the kitchen.
Artiste.
Artiste.
Artistic.
Artistic.
Artistic work.
Opinion about the artistic merit of his paintings has been mixed.
John is very artistic.
Food presented in an artistic way.
Artistry.
Artistry.
The artistry of dance. Artless.
Artless.
Artless sincerity. An artless copy of European art.
Art Nouveau.
Art Nouveau.
Art cinema.
Art cinema.
Artwork.
Artwork.
Arty.
Arty.
He was one of those arty types.
An arty film. Paris's arty Marais district.
Arty-farty. Arty-farty.
Arugula. Arugula. Arugula.
Arvo.
Arvo.
I'm going fishing this Arvo.
Aryan.
Aryan.
As. As.
Tom's not as old as you, is he? An old woman with hair as white as snow. Some of the doctors are paid almost twice as much as the nurses.
We work as hard as any other team in England. We work as hard as any other team in England.
Please let me know your decision as soon as possible.
His last album sold 500,000 copies, and we hope this one will be just as popular.
As a parent, I feel that more should be done to protect our children.
A flat stone was used as a table.
Dad dressed up as Santa Claus.
The problem is regarded as serious.
The result of last week's election will be seen as a victory for the right-wing government.
He's described as being in his late teens, tall and of slim build.
As a young man, Eliot had studied art in Paris.
I'll take you to all the places I loved as a girl.
They want peace as much as we do. Helen comes to visit me as often as she can.
I can't run as fast as I used to.
Do as I say.
We'd better leave things as they are until the police arrive. The money was repaid as promised. He did not need to keep moving house as his father had.
Roberta was late as usual. David, as you know, has not been well lately.
As I explained on the phone, your request will be considered at the next meeting.
As Napoleon once said, attack is the best method of defense.
I saw Peter as I was getting off the bus.
As time passed, things seemed to get worse. Just as the two men were leaving, a message arrived.
As it was getting late, I turned around to start for home. We asked Philip to come with us, as he knew the road.
Unlikely as it might seem, I'm tired too.
Try as she might, she couldn't get the door open.
As popular as he is, the president hasn't always managed to have his own way.
Kitty's got so thin, and as for Carl, he always seems to be ill. You can ask the others, but as for myself, I'll be busy in the office.
We've had no word from Colin as yet.
It sounds as though she's been really ill. Gary was behaving as though nothing had happened.
Mrs. Crump looked as if she was going to explode.
Beckworth shook his head as if to say, "Don't trust her." She said she'd never speak to me again, as if I cared. "Don't try any funny business now," as if I would. "Don't try any funny business now," as if I would. He asked if I'd go out with him, as if.
Why do they never go on holiday? I mean, it's not as if they're poor, is it?
I don't know why you're so frightened of her. It's not as if she's got any power over you. They hope to finish the kitchen by Friday, but as it is, they'll probably have to come back next week.
Just keep quiet, you're in enough trouble as it is.
As from today, you are in charge of the office.
As of now, there will be no more paid overtime.
Profits this year are $2.5 million, as against $4 million last year.
Frank was very uncertain as to whether it was the right job for him.
Advice as to which suppliers to approach. He kept his rivals guessing as to his real intentions.
As to our future plans, I think I need only say that the company intends to expand at a steady rate.
Jim Radcliffe became our idol, as it were, the man we all wanted to be.
Eve's very tall, as was her mother.
I voted Labour, as did my wife.
We talked, exchanged email addresses and phone numbers as you do on planes. I was driving a Ferrari through town yesterday, as you do, when I saw an old school friend outside the cinema.
The ASA.
ASAP.
Asbestos.
Asbestos.
ASBO. ASBO.
Ascend.
Ascend.
The plane ascended rapidly. Without a word, he began to ascend the stairs. The road ascends steeply from the harbour. The number of women decreases as you ascend the professional hierarchy.
Ascendancy.
Ascendancy.
Moral ascendancy.
The ascendancy of nationalist forces. Butler established ascendancy over his critics. He slowly gained ascendancy in the group.
A teaching method that is currently in the ascendancy.
Ascendant.
Ascendant.
A political party that's in the ascendant. A politically ascendant country.
Ascension.
Ascension.
His ascension to the ranks of senior management.
Ascent.
Ascent.
First ascent of Everest.
A rugged and steep ascent.
The president's ascent to power.
Ascertain.
Ascertain.
A post-mortem was ordered to try to ascertain the cause of death.
Tests were conducted to ascertain whether pollution levels have dropped.
Police had ascertained that the dead man knew his killer.
You should ascertain the level of insurance cover from the car rental company.
Ascetic.
Ascetic.
An ascetic life.
ASCII.
ASCII.
Ascot.
Ascot.
Ascribe.
Ascribe.
The report ascribes the rise in childhood asthma to the increase in pollution.
A quotation that's often been ascribed to Marilyn Monroe.
Local people ascribe healing properties to this fruit.
Most of the accidents were ascribable to the bad weather.
Aseptic.
Aseptic.
Asexual.
Asexual.
Asexual reproduction.
Ash.
Ash.
Cigarette ash.
The house burnt to ashes. His ashes were scattered at sea.
The organisation has risen from the ashes to become very successful. All her hopes and dreams had turned to ashes.
Ashamed.
Ashamed.
I felt ashamed of the things I'd said to him. I'm ashamed to admit that I've never read any of his books.
She felt ashamed that she had missed her sister's wedding. Alan was deeply ashamed when he remembered what he'd said.
Everyone cries sometimes. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
You should be ashamed of yourself. Many children feel ashamed of their parents.
Their behaviour makes me ashamed to be British.
Ashcan.
Ashcan.
Ashen.
Ashen.
His face was ashen. Ashen hills.
Ashes.
Ashes. Australia have retained the Ashes for the 3rd year running.
Ashore.
Ashore.
Seals come ashore to breed. Several dead birds have been washed ashore.
Ashram.
Ashram.
Ashtray.
Ashtray.
Ash Wednesday.
Ash Wednesday.
Asian.
Asian.
Asian American.
Asian American.
ASIC. ASIC.
Aside.
Aside.
I've been setting aside a few pounds each week.
One of the rooms was set aside for a yoga class.
Try to set aside a few hours a week for exercise. Could you put this cake aside for me?
He pushed his half-eaten salad aside and left.
He stepped aside to let Catherine go in first.
Mark drew me aside and explained the problem. She swept her thick hair aside. He brushed aside criticisms of his performance. Leaving aside the heat, we really enjoyed our holiday.
You must put aside your pride and call her. These problems aside, we think the plan should go ahead.
Aside from Durang's performance, the actors are ordinary. In the poetry competition, aside from Haas, are 4 other entrants.
I should add, as an aside, that the younger the child, the faster they learn.
Asinine.
Asinine.
What an asinine remark.
Ask.
Ask.
What's your name? She asked.
Don't ask him, he won't know.
That kid's always asking awkward questions.
I asked him where he lived.
We'll have to ask someone the way to the station.
Go and ask Tom whether he's coming tonight.
Visitors usually ask about the history of the castle. I'll ask around, see if I can find you a place to stay. If you need anything, you only have to ask.
Ask John to mail those letters tomorrow.
Karen asked to see the doctor.
Some people find it difficult to ask for help.
He repeatedly asked Bailey for the report.
Ask your mom if you can come with us.
Was it too much to ask that he be allowed some privacy? How much is he asking?
He's asking £2,000 for his car.
They're asking a fortune for that house.
Let's ask them to have dinner with us sometime.
Jerry's too scared to ask her out.
Don't leave them standing on the doorstep. Ask them in.
We must ask our new neighbours over for a drink.
It would be better if he cooperated, but perhaps I'm asking too much.
You have no right to ask anything of me. Expecting the children to do an hour's homework after school is asking a lot of them.
I couldn't ask for a better boss.
Saying that to a feminist is just asking for trouble.
You have to ask yourself where your responsibilities really lie.
He's just plain crazy if you ask me. Where's she gone then? Don't ask me.
What was that woman selling? Don't ask.
It's his own fault he got hit. He was asking for it.
The job was hers for the asking.
I spoke to James today. He was asking after you.
There's someone at the door asking for Dad.
We need to win the next 3 games. It's a big ask, but I'm confident we can do it.
Askance.
Askance.
A waiter looked askance at Ellis's jeans.
Askew.
Askew.
Matilda ran towards us with her hat askew.
Asking price.
Asking price.
Aslant.
Aslant.
Asleep.
Asleep.
Quiet. The baby's asleep. Grandad fell asleep watching TV.
1 in 7 road accidents is caused by drivers falling asleep at the wheel.
Still half asleep, Jenny began to make the kids breakfast. Several publishers were asleep at the switch and missed the book's potential.
Aslev.
AS level.
AS level.
I'm taking AS levels in French, Spanish, English and Maths.
ASP.
Asp.
Asparagus.
Asparagus.
ASP baton. ASP baton.
The ASPCA.
ASPCA.
Aspect.
Aspect.
Dealing with people is the most important aspect of my work. Alcoholism affects all aspects of family life. A south-facing aspect. The storm outside gave the room a sinister aspect.
He sings differs from he is singing in aspect.
Aspen.
Aspen.
Asperger's syndrome.
Asperger's syndrome.
Asperity.
Asperity.
Aspersion.
Aspersion.
No one is casting aspersions on you or your men, Major.
Asphalt.
Asphalt.
Asphyxia.
Asphyxia.
Asphyxiate.
A part of town preserved in aspic for tourists.
Aspidistra.
Aspidistra.
Aspie.
Aspie.
Aspirant.
Aspirant.
Aspirate.
Aspirate. Aspirate.
Aspiration.
Aspiration.
A high level of political aspiration.
The aspirations of the working classes.
Their hopes and aspirations for the future.
Aspirational.
Aspirational. Aspirational young women. The advertisements had an aspirational look, using silk and pearls.
Aspire.
Aspire.
College graduates aspiring to careers in finance.
At that time, all serious artists aspired to go to Rome.
Aspirin.
Aspirin.
Aspiring.
Aspiring.
Aspiring young writers. The aspiring middle classes.
Ass.
Ass.
Assail.
Assail.
Carla was suddenly assailed by doubts.
The smell of rotten meat assailed her nostrils.
The press assailed the proposals.
Assailant.
Assailant.
Assassin.
Assassin.
Kennedy's assassin is assumed to have been Lee Harvey Oswald.
Assassinate.
Assassinate.
A plot to assassinate the president.
Assassination.
Assassination.
The assassination of Anwar Sadat.
He narrowly escaped an assassination attempt.
Assault.
Assault.
A case of robbery and assault.
He was jailed for assault.
Victims of indecent assault. Sexual assaults on women. Several soldiers have been charged with assault.
An unsuccessful assault on the enemy lines.
The refugee camp came under assault again last night. A powerful assault rifle.
An assault on the capitalist system. Traditional family values are increasingly under assault.
An assault on Mount Everest.
Two men assaulted him after he left the bar. He was found guilty of indecently assaulting a student.
The noises and smells of the market assaulted her senses.
A task force to assault the problems.
Assault and battery.
Assault and battery.
Assault course.
Assault course.
Assay.
Assay.
Assemblage.
Assemblage.
A unique assemblage of wildlife.
Assemble.
Assemble.
A large crowd had assembled outside the American embassy.
He looked around at the assembled company. She had assembled a collection of her favourite songs.
The aircraft will continue to be assembled in France.
Assembly.
Assembly.
The General Assembly of the Church of Scotland.
The Speaker of the California State Assembly.
An assembly of reporters. Police have imposed conditions on public assemblies. Restrictions on freedom of assembly have gradually been relaxed.
An assembly point. Instructions for assembly.
Assembly language.
Assembly language.
Assembly line.
Assembly line.
Assemblyman.
Assemblyman.
Assemblywoman.
Assemblywoman. Assent.
Assent.
A nod of assent.
The assent of the Board of Governors.
Parliament gave its assent to war. They assented to his request to work from home.
Assert.
Assert.
French cooking, she asserted, is the best in the world. He asserted that nuclear power was a safe and non-polluting energy source.
Native Americans asserting their rights to ancestral land.
Women began to assert themselves politically.
National pride began to assert itself.
Assertion.
Assertion.
The assertion that house prices are falling. Her assertion of independence. Her assertions about the murder of her father She makes very general assertions about marriage in the poem.
Assertive.
Assertive.
Assertiveness training.
Assess.
Assess.
A report to assess the impact of advertising on children.
The technique is being tried in classrooms to assess what effects it might have. Many of the adults were assessed as having learning difficulties. The value of the business was assessed at £1.25 million.
Assessment.
Assessment.
What's Michael's assessment of the situation?
A reading assessment test. A tax assessment.
Assessor.
Assessor.
Asset.
Asset.
A corporation with $9 billion in assets.
The value of a company's assets.
A sense of humor is a great asset in this business.
I think Rachel would be an asset to the department.
Asset stripping.
Asset stripping.
Asshole.
Asshole.
Assiduous.
Assiduous.
He was assiduous in his attendance at church.
Even young children worked assiduously for a reward.